Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of clinical precision.
Right, yeah, like it's a math problem.
Exactly. Like you break your arm, the X-ray shows that, that jagged white line, and the doctor points to it. The problem is totally isolated. It's binary. It's either broken or it's not.
Yeah, which is the ideal scenario, honestly. You have objective data and a really clear path forward.
But the thing is, the moment you introduce a second language into that high-stakes environment, that objective precision just completely shatters.
Oh, absolutely. It's gone.
You step into a clinic, and you have to navigate your healthcare in English, and suddenly it's not just about a virus or a broken bone.
Yeah.
You're dealing with this massive cognitive barrier before the doctor even looks at you.
Yeah, it creates a diagnostic landscape that is incredibly murky. Because, the primary diagnostic tool a doctor actually has isn't the X-ray machine. It's not the blood test.
Right. It's the patient.
Exactly. It's the patient intake. It's your ability to describe what is happening inside your own body. And when you are doing that in a non-native language, under distress, your brain literally works against you.
And that cognitive roadblock is exactly what we are dismantling today. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Today we're exploring the linguistic survival strategies for navigating a doctor's visit in English.
Which is such an important mission.
It really is. And our goal today isn't to make you sound like a medical textbook. We are looking at the exact, simple frameworks you need to describe symptoms, survive the diagnostic process, and, actually practice these skills so they become automatic.
Because the stakes feel incredibly high when it's your health on the line. The stress factor really cannot be overstated here.
Yeah, even native speakers get nervous. Think about just walking into a clinic. There's that distinct smell of antiseptic.
Oh, yeah.
And the sterile lights, the sound of other people coughing in the waiting room. It triggers what's known as the doctor effect.
Which is very real.
Right. Your cortisol levels spike, your body's stress response activates, and ironically, being in a place of healing actually makes you feel sicker and more vulnerable.
Yeah, and then you add the cognitive load of actively trying to remember English grammar rules to that cortisol spike. It's just a recipe for complete mental paralysis. The language center of the brain essentially hits a bottleneck.
Which makes sense, like your brain is just overloaded.
Exactly. What's actually happening there is the affective filter in your brain is going up.
The affective filter.
Yeah, so in linguistics, the affective filter is this emotional barrier that prevents learning and language production when a person is experiencing like anxiety or stress. So when your cortisol is high, your working memory shrinks.
Wow, so the words just disappear.
Totally. The nuanced, complex vocabulary you might use perfectly well in a calm classroom setting becomes completely inaccessible. You are left grasping for words while the doctor is just, waiting for an answer.
Which brings us to the very first hurdle, right? The waiting room. Because before you even see the doctor, you have to establish the basic issue with the reception staff.
Right, the front desk.
Yeah, and you're standing there, your heart is beating fast, and they ask, what seems to be the problem? And this is where, honestly, our linguistic pride actually hurts us.
Oh, 100%.
Highly educated adults just freeze up because they want to sound sophisticated, they want to give this nuanced medical history. But the words are trapped behind that affective filter.
Yeah, so the tactical approach here is radical simplicity. The goal is data transfer, not grammatical elegance.
Okay, I like that. Data transfer.
Right. You start with the most basic building blocks. You just say, I need to see a doctor, or I have an appointment with the doctor.
Keep it super simple.
Exactly. And when establishing the baseline of your condition, the most effective phrases are totally unadorned. Just say, I don't feel well, or I'm not feeling very well today.
Okay, let's unpack this because it feels almost too simple, doesn't it? If someone asks what's wrong and you just say, my back hurts or I have a headache, I feel like there's a temptation to think you aren't providing enough information, like you're using, I don't know, caveman grammar.
That's a really common misconception, but you have to look at it from the triage perspective.
Okay.
A doctor or a triage nurse doesn't need a poetic description of your pain to begin their workflow. They just need a geographical location on the body.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so phrases like, I have a headache, my stomach hurts, or my back hurts, they give the medical staff the exact coordinates to start their investigation. You are basically handing them a map with a red X on it. From there, they know which specific follow-up questions to ask.
So by stripping away the complex grammar, You actually accelerate the diagnostic process. You get out of your own way.
Precisely. You reduce your own cognitive load, which lowers your anxiety, while at the same time giving the medical professional exactly what they need to move you to the next step.
Which moves us past the waiting room and into the exam room itself. The doctor walks in, the geographical location of the pain has been established. But now the cognitive load gets heavier because we have to detail the symptoms and how long we've had them.
Right.
This is where the brain really tries to overcomplicate things, I think.
It does. Now, the symptom vocabulary itself is straightforward, but it does require some precision. You need to be able to state things like, I feel dizzy, I feel tired all the time, I have a fever, I have a cough, or I feel weak.
But the real trap is explaining the timeline, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because the natural instinct for someone who has studied English is to reach for the present perfect continuous tense.
Yeah.
Your brain tries to construct this massive sentence like, I have been experiencing a headache for the past 2 days.
Which is exhausting, just to say.
Right. And under the pressure of a clinical environment, juggling those auxiliary verbs is incredibly difficult. But our sources highlight a highly effective workaround formula. It's simply, I have, plus the problem, plus 4, plus the time.
The mathematical simplicity of that formula is brilliant.
It really is.
You just say, I have a headache for 2 days, or I have a sore throat for 1 week. Now, from a strict textbook grammar perspective, yes, it's imperfect. But from a communicative medical perspective, it is flawless.
Because it bypasses the mental gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to conjugate anything complex. You just plug the data points into the slots.
And the doctor instantly grasps the two most critical diagnostic metrics, the specific symptom and whether the timeline is acute or chronic. But, the communication strategy doesn't stop at just physical data.
What do you mean?
Well, one of the most overlooked aspects of navigating a medical visit in a second language is providing emotional context.
Wait, really? Okay, why should an English learner worry about expressing fear or nervousness? Doesn't adding phrases like, I'm worried about my health or this pain scares me, just add unnecessary vocabulary to remember? Like, shouldn't they just stick to the physical facts?
What's fascinating here is that a doctor isn't just analyzing a machine, right? They are treating a human nervous system. Oh, right.
When you express worry or fear, you are providing crucial context for your physical symptoms. If your heart rate is elevated and your blood pressure is high, the doctor needs to know if that's a symptom of an underlying disease or if it's simply a stress response to the pain in the hospital environment.
That completely shifts the perspective. You're separating the physical illness from the psychological reaction to the illness.
Exactly. When you explicitly state, this pain makes me nervous, the doctor immediately understands that your elevated vitals might just be anxiety-driven. It also changes the interpersonal dynamic.
How so?
It signals to the doctor that they need to adjust their bedside manner, slow down their explanations, and really prioritize reassurance. You are managing the doctor's behavior simply by voicing your internal state.
That is so empowering, to see how these simplified structures and emotional cues actually dictate the flow of a medical visit. Let's just seamlessly step into a clinical exchange right now, a little role play directly from our sources.
Perfect. I'll be the doctor. Good morning. Please have a seat. How can I help you today? I don't feel very well. I have a headache and I feel very tired.
How long have you felt like this?
For about 3 days.
Do you have a fever?
Yes, a little.
Are you sleeping well?
Not really. I wake up at night.
Do you feel stressed?
Yes, very stressed.
And seen? The beauty of that exchange lies entirely in its brevity.
Seriously, breaking character for a second, I have to point out how incredibly short the patient's sentences are.
Right.
There were no long, winding explanations. It's just, yes, a little, or for about 3 days. In a normal conversational setting, answering like that might feel abrupt, but here it's just so efficient.
It's the absolute gold standard for workplace or medical English. Short sentences are clear and powerful. You are providing maximum clarity with minimum linguistic effort.
You don't need conversational pleasantries.
Exactly. I really want you to notice that answering for about 3 days is a complete successful interaction. It keeps the diagnostic momentum moving forward without draining your cognitive battery.
Okay, so you've successfully communicated the symptoms.
Right.
The doctor diagnoses the issue. Now we enter what might actually be the most dangerous phase of the visit. The prescription and the treatment plan.
Yes, this is a major shift.
Because the dynamic totally changes. You are no longer providing data, you're receiving instructions. And the cognitive load shifts from producing language to comprehending some highly specialized jargon.
The vulnerability in this phase is severe. If it's a standard visit, you're likely navigating medication. You have to understand parameters like, should I take this before food or after food? Are there any side effects? Or how long will it take to feel better?
And here's where it gets really interesting. The sources specifically talk about reading medicine bottles, and they're intimidating even for native speakers.
Oh, absolutely.
They're covered in tiny print featuring these massive multisyllabic chemical names that look like science homework. The complexity is just overwhelming.
Which triggers a psychological defense mechanism that is incredibly common in clinical settings. We call it the nodding mistake.
The nodding mistake. I love that term because it's so accurate. It's this phenomenon driven entirely by social compliance and, frankly, intimidation.
Right.
You're sitting on the exam table, you're exhausted, the doctor is standing over you in a white coat, rattling off a treatment plan filled with medical terminology, and out of a desire to be polite or because you just want to escape the clinical environment as fast as possible, you just nod.
You nod your head, you say yes, and you project complete comprehension when internally you have absolutely no idea what they just said.
It's such a huge risk. Like, in a social setting, nodding along to a story you didn't quite catch is harmless. But in a medical setting, nodding along could mean you take the wrong dose or fail to recognize a severe allergic reaction.
The stakes are your literal physical safety. So to counteract that social pressure, you have to be willing to disrupt the doctor's workflow.
You need a linguistic circuit breaker.
Exactly. And the most powerful gold standard phrase you can deploy is, "Can you explain this simply, please?"
Can you explain this simply, please? I love that. It sets a firm boundary. It forces the medical professional to step out of their jargon and re-engage with you as a regular person.
It is the ultimate self-advocacy phrase. Combine it with, "Sorry, I don't understand," or "Can you say that again slowly?" And you completely neutralize the danger of the nodding mistake. You take control of your health.
But let's escalate this scenario a bit. What if we aren't just dealing with a confusing prescription? What if it's an acute crisis, like an emergency room? That cognitive bottleneck clamps down even tighter.
In an emergency, the vocabulary must be instantly recognizable. You need the core safety phrases. "I need help. Please call a doctor. It's an emergency."
Basic survival phrases.
Right. But beyond calling for help, you will inevitably encounter the hospital pain scale.
The classic 1 to 10 question. How bad is the pain from 1 to 10? The psychology of this question always trips people up, right? Because they try to overanalyze the subjective nature of their pain. Well, is it a 6 or maybe 7.5?
During a crisis, you do not have the luxury of philosophical debate. You use broad, undeniable strokes. You state a number. It's about a 7. Or you bypass the numbers entirely and use universal descriptors. It's very strong, or conversely, it's not too bad.
And the medical staff uses this for triage priority, right? Not just medication.
Exactly. Now, knowing these phrases intellectually is one thing, but as we established earlier, when the cortisol spikes, intellectual knowledge tends to evaporate.
Right. You can't rely on your working memory.
No, you have to rely on automaticity. Which brings us to a really critical training mechanism you can do at home. Shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, so how do we practice this so it's ready in a high-stress environment?
So shadowing is basically a neurological tool disguised as a language exercise. The fundamental definition is listening to a short English clip and copying the speaker at the exact same time, or maybe just 1 second later, like an echo.
Like an echo, right? So what are the steps?
It's simple. Choose a 10 to 20 second clip, listen to it once without speaking, then play it again and copy the rhythm and speed. The key is don't pause to fix mistakes. Just repeat it 3 or 4 times.
But why is this specific technique so vital? Like, why not just use flashcards or memorize a vocabulary list of body parts and symptoms?
Because flashcards rely on the analytical part of your brain, and when you are stressed, the analytical brain slows down. Shadowing bypasses that entirely and targets the motor cortex. It physically trains the mouth muscles and connects the brain to the sounds faster.
It's kind of like going to the gym for your mouth.
Exactly. Or like dancing with someone, you learn the natural rhythm and music of English.
But I think we have to validate the internal resistance people feel toward this. The embarrassment factor is real. What if I sound like a confused robot? What if I miss words entirely? It feels silly sitting alone in your room talking over an audio track.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about when a baby learns to walk. They fall. When you shadow, you will stumble. You will absolutely sound disjointed at first, but making those mistakes at home in your personal laboratory builds the muscle memory needed for the real world.
Because the goal is that when you're in the exam room, overwhelmed by the doctor effect, your mouth just takes over and delivers the phrase.
Exactly. It transforms the language from an intellectual puzzle into a reflex.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring it all together. Navigating a doctor's visit when English isn't steam, your native language is intimidating. But surviving it doesn't require a medical degree or perfect grammar.
Not at all.
It requires simple symptom phrases: headache, fever, my back hurts. It requires the courage to express your feelings and ask direct questions about your medicine. And it takes the discipline to practice via shadowing. Ultimately, it means you are in control.
Yes, language is a bridge, not a wall. When you use your voice at the doctor, you are taking an active, brave step in advocating for your own well-being.
You transition from just hoping to be understood to actually directing your own care.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. If practicing English for a doctor's visit teaches you how to advocate for your physical health through clear, simple communication, in what other areas of your life might speaking simply and directly be the cure for your anxiety?